Hello and welcome back to You Are All Charlotte, my debut time travel horror novel, which is out June 1st, just a couple weeks from now, and paperback, which I have right here, and also available on Kindle Unlimited. I'm very excited, and I hope you are excited as well. I can't wait for you guys to read this entire story, because I have been working on this story for quite a few years now. I love this book. I am so thrilled with the way it turned out, and I cannot wait for everybody to read it. Like I said, it's out June 1st, 2 weeks from now, in paperback and Kindle Unlimited. Today, we're going to be reading Chapter 3, which is 2024, The First Night. In the first chapter, our main character, Magda, was at a party. She was very drunk. She got into a fight with some friends, and she stormed out of the party and walked home. In this chapter, which is Chapter 3, she has made it home. She is locked out of her house because she lost her keys in the woods. And now she is trying to find a way into her house. But when she gets inside, she discovers that she is not alone. So I am very excited to read this chapter to you, and let's get started right now. Chapter 3, 2024, The First Night. Magda climbed the back steps and grabbed a plastic lawn chair. The floodlights over the door clicked on, triggered by a motion detector, and she winced as the pounding in her head intensified. Soon as she got inside, she was going straight for the ibuprofen. She carried the chair back down the steps and over to the attached garage. She'd already tried the first floor windows and doors, all locked. And her mother never liked the idea of keeping a hidden key under a rock. Too many nutjobs out there know the same trick, Magda. So that left one possibility. After propping the chair against the garage wall, she stood on top and rubbed her hands in preparation, then jumped straight up. Her fingers caught the lips of the roof, and the tiles were like sandpaper. Slowly, she pulled herself up, digging her shoes into the aluminum siding. Her feet slipped and kicked over the chair, but her grip held, at least for a moment. Fingers beginning to slip, she scrambled up the wall until one foot caught the edge of a window, and she used it to hoist herself up and onto the roof. The ground below spun wildly when she tried to stand. Bile rose again, and she lay against the rough tile for a moment, waiting for the dizziness to pass. She made her way slowly up the steep roof until she reached the bathroom window overlooking the garage. The glass slid open when she pushed up on it, and she breathed a sigh of relief. Unlocked. Taking one last look behind her, relieved she wouldn't have to spend the next half hour in the dark beside the woods, she eased her legs over the sill, then pulled herself through the opening and collapsed on the bathroom floor. The tile was cool against her forehead. Exhausted. Still pretty drunk, but finally, she was home. Once the pounding in her head subsided, Magda got to her feet and turned on the bathroom sink. A flushed, messy face stared back in the mirror. Lines of mascara ran from her puffy eyes. A bit of vomit stained the front of Sara's borrowed sweater. She pulled a dead leaf from her disheveled hair and tossed it aside. After washing her face, she smoothed her hair with wet hands. Her mother, and Jimmy, would be home in half an hour. There was no hiding how drunk she still was, but at least she could clean herself up a bit. At least not look like she'd spent the night puking in the woods. She rubbed a bit of soap on the sweater, but the vomit only smeared more. Fine. No problem. Fuck Sara and her sweater. Exhaustion rolled over her like a wave as she brushed her teeth. She wanted nothing more than to stay in bed the entire weekend. The sooner she started that plan, the better. Once her mother got home, there would be nothing but questions. Weren't you staying at Sara's house tonight? Are you insane? Don't you know how dangerous it is to walk home at night? Of course she did. Magda knew better than anyone what dangers were out there in the woods. She spat in the sink and slammed the toothbrush back in its cup. Stepping into the dark upstairs hallway, her foot caught on the edge of the hallway rug. She stumbled, slammed her hip into the small table against the wall, and caught a framed photo before it crashed to the floor. Holding it with both hands, she gazed at it through blurry eyes. Magda and Jimmy. 6 years ago. Just kids. Grinning on either side of a snowman they'd built in the backyard. Their father took the picture. 7 months later, he was dead, and Jimmy was missing a leg. Because of her. Magda's skin felt hot. She had an urge to let the photo fall and shatter on the floor. Instead, she took a breath, replaced it on the table, and nudged it until it was back in place. Good enough. Her phone buzzed in her back pocket. The hallway lit up from the glow as she pulled it out. A text from Jimmy. "Were you at a party tonight? People keep sending me videos of you. Why'd you hit Sara?" Her heart leaped into her throat. Somehow the thought of Jimmy seeing those videos hadn't occurred to her. Everything she'd said on that patio, everything Jaden had said. She furiously typed a message and hit send. "Don't watch them, okay? Please, don't watch." 3 dots appeared. Her heart pounded. After several agonizing seconds, a reply. "Why? What'd you do?" "There's a ton of them. They all say, 'Crazy girl, what a psycho,' stuff like that. I watched a couple, but the music's loud. I can't hear what you're saying. I just see you push Sara down and walk out. WTF happened?" Fuck. Magda never told Jimmy what happened that night in the cave, and he never asked. In fact, she'd only ever told one person. Sara, one late night, drinking and telling each other ghost stories. Bad decision, it turned out, but Magda was used to making them. Her thumbs flew across the screen as she typed and sent the message. "I took off my top." It was the only thing she could think of that would stop him from watching. She waited a moment, her knuckles pressed to her lips, but Jimmy didn't reply. The pounding in her head returned. She typed again. "Sara dared me, and I did it. Didn't know there were people recording. She tricked me. That's why I pushed her. Don't watch." 3 dots appeared under her message, and then, "Gross, Magda." A moment later, another message appeared. "But Sara's grosser. She sucks. Home soon." Her heart rate slowed. What else could she do but lie to Jimmy? The one person left in Magda's life who hadn't given up on her. If he watched the videos, he'd know the truth. But after tonight, everyone in town would know. And how long could she expect to keep it from him now? Magda pushed it out of her head. Worry about it in the morning. Tonight she needed sleep, and... A door slammed somewhere downstairs. Magda froze, her phone screen illuminating the hallway in cold blue. She focused. Her heart beat fast again. The screen shut itself off after a second or two, plunging her back into darkness. Her mother couldn't be home already. Jimmy said they were at least 40 minutes away, and that was... How long ago? She scrolled through her messages until she saw it. "We won't be home for like 40 minutes. Received 12 minutes ago." Who slammed the door then? Magda crept to the edge of the staircase and peered down into the dark below. Her phone screen lit the stairs in blue. A small landing near the bottom split into 2 staircases to the left and right. Left, the kitchen and dining room. Right, a hallway leading to Magda and Jimmy's bedrooms. Straight ahead was the living room in complete darkness. Heavy footsteps pounded somewhere below. They grew louder, thudding on the floorboards until Magda expected someone to round the corner, appearing at the bottom of the steps to stare up at her. Instead, the footsteps stopped, and then came the sound of the kitchen light clicking on. But the room below remained in darkness. She frowned. Was this in her head? Crazy Magda again? She thought of the doctor at her first and only therapy session, raising his eyebrow at her from over his clipboard. Your mother mentioned sometimes you see things, hear things, that aren't there. Footsteps stomped across linoleum, and a drawer slid open. Her skin felt hot. Someone was in her kitchen. Or they weren't. Either way, her fear was real. Her phone screen went off again, and she was back in darkness. She thumbed the button, and the steps lit up once more. A cupboard creaked open in the kitchen below. The water in the sink turned on and, after a moment, turned off again. The kitchen light clicked again, and the footsteps retreated, growing softer toward the back of the house. Still, everything remained dark below. She heard the basement door open. Footsteps descended the stairs, pounding on each step. Besides Magda, only her mother and Jimmy had keys to the house. All the doors and windows had been locked when she checked a few minutes earlier. Whoever was down there couldn't have followed her through the upstairs bathroom window, not without passing her in the hall, so... No. Oh, fucking hell. Her keys! The ones in her backpack, abandoned in the middle of the pit on top of a pile of leaves. Someone found them. Maybe they were watching her the entire time she stumbled home drunk through the dark woods. Maybe they followed her, straight to her house, let themselves right in. Which meant they knew she was in the house as well. The front door was down the steps and across the living room. She could make a dash for it, but then where? Their closest neighbor lived halfway down the mountain, and it was another mile past that into town. The thought of going back into the woods to hide chilled her blood, so soon after hearing that terrible voice in the cave. Real or not, she would lose her mind for good if she had to hear it again. She almost dropped the phone when it began to buzz in her hand. Sara calling. Magda answered the phone and brought it close to her lips. Never mind how angry she had been. Tomorrow she could go right back to ignoring Sara, but not tonight. "There's someone in my house," Magda whispered. "Mag?" Sara's voice blared from the phone speaker, and Magda hurried to bring the volume almost all the way down. "Thank God you're okay. Look, I'm sorry about—" "Sara." Magda cupped her hand over the phone, whispering slowly. "There's a strange man in my fucking house." In the basement 2 floors below, a new sound. Muffled and distant but unmistakable. A scream. Someone in pain or terror. Maybe both. A door slammed. She jumped, startled. The phone tumbled from her fingers and it thumped on each step until it landed somewhere at the bottom. Face down, she assumed, because now she was back in complete darkness. Fuck. She bit her knuckle until it hurt. Her heart raced. She grabbed the railing, still half drunk, and carefully took the first step in the dark. A wave of dizziness came over her again. Her skin buzzed, electricity reverberating down her body. She closed her eyes, her heart pounding, and felt her way down the steps one at a time. The dizziness faded. At the landing, she grabbed the railing and took a deep breath. She crouched and felt around for her phone. Nothing. Fuck it, she could worry about it later. The front door was just across the living room, 30, maybe 40 feet away. The room spun around her. Drunk or not, she could make it. Run. Get outside. Hide in the trees. Carefully, she crept down the rest of the steps into the living room, then took a step in the direction of the front door. Her foot came down on something hard and glass crunched. She bent and felt around until her hand found her phone. The broken screen lit up, illuminating the room around her. What the fuck? This was not her house. A table she'd never seen before. A dirty sofa with an old-fashioned flowery print. A boxy old TV with an antenna on top. Magda shook her head, not understanding. She had followed the trail directly home, the same trail she'd walked 1,000 times. She brushed her teeth in her own bathroom, with her own toothbrush. Knocked down a photo of herself with Jimmy. This was her house, it had to be, but... On the phone, underneath a web of new cracks across the screen, was a message. Call ended. In the corner of the screen were the words, "No signal." Footsteps approached, thumping loudly. Magda ducked down behind the railing and pressed her phone to her chest to hide the screen. The light switch clicked again, and this time the overhead bulb came on, illuminating an old-fashioned kitchen and the skinny, scraggly-haired man standing in the middle of it. Gravel crunched under the tires. Jimmy sat up in the back seat and peered out the window as the car pulled into the driveway. The house and surrounding trees were awash in the flashing red and blue lights of 2 police cars, parked half on the road and half on their front lawn. He glanced at the time, 1:32 a.m. Almost 20 minutes since Magda had sent her texts. Had something happened since then? Why the police? "The fuck is this?" said his mother. The car came to a stop and she threw the door open, heading straight for the front door. A short policeman with a white goatee, who had been shining his flashlight into the trees, hurried over and blocked her way. "Hang on a minute, ma'am. Can't let you go in yet." "Officer," she began. "Sheriff Gibson," he said. "You're the mother?" He shined his flashlight toward the car's back seat, and Jimmy threw an arm over his face to shield his eyes. "You know perfectly well who I am." Jimmy's mother rubbed her arms in the cold. Her breath floated in the beam of his flashlight. "Did Magda do something?" Jimmy pushed open the car door and eased the sore nub of his leg out, then began to reattach his prosthetic foot. By the end of the concert, he'd been wearing it for hours, and the ride home allowed him a few minutes of relief. At least until messages from classmates began popping up on his phone. Photos. Videos. "Isn't this your sister, dude?" And "Crazy Magda at it again, LOL." "The girl. Magda, you said? Complained to a friend about an unknown male in the house after returning home from a party." Gibson flipped through the notebook, then tapped on a name written there. "So Miss Hanson called us to report a possible home invasion." "Ah, Sara." Jimmy's mom sighed and turned back to Gibson. "Sheriff, I'm sorry, but we can handle this. Magda's probably just passed out on the couch, spooked by her own shadow. She does stuff like this all the time." "Does what?" "She has some, issues." She lowered her voice, but Jimmy could still hear from the back seat, and it wasn't like he didn't know already. Sometimes, especially when they went into town, his sister would freeze up, staring wide-eyed at something invisible to Jimmy. "Sees things that aren't there, people that aren't there. I tried getting her help, but how old is Magda?" 19. Another officer, taller than Gibson and wearing glasses, emerged from around the side of the house. "Everything's locked up and no one's answering the back door," he said. "But there's a chair knocked over next to the garage. Muddy footprints on the aluminum siding. If I had to guess, I'd say someone climbed up on top of the garage and proceeded to enter through the open window on the second floor." He nodded to Jimmy's mother. "Easy thing to forget, ma'am. Locking windows when you leave." "You mind letting Officer Collins into the house?" Gibson nodded toward the front door. "He can do a search, make sure it's clear before y'all go in." "Fine." His mother handed Collins her keyring, and the officer plodded across the front lawn and up the porch steps. After a moment fumbling with the key, he nudged the door open, shined a light into the dark, and announced himself as police. "You mentioned she was drinking." Gibson peered up at Jimmy's mother from the pad of paper he was writing in. "Did this happen at home or at the party?" "I don't know anything about a party." She raised an eyebrow at Jimmy, who shrugged. "But she's young and it's Friday night. She works at the Walgreens in town, but she got off hours ago, and who knows what she's been up to since then." Gibson raised his eyebrow. "I would think her mother would." "She's a grown woman, officer. Sheriff." Gibson turned his attention back to his pad of paper, making a note. "Well, the point is, maybe someone followed Magda home from this party. Angry ex-boyfriend, for example?" Jimmy stood and crossed the yard toward his mother, then reached for her hand. The idea that someone could have stalked his sister, maybe even hurt her, was becoming more real by the second. "Magda hasn't had a boyfriend since high school," Jimmy's mother said, "and none of those lasted very long either." "But like you said," Gibson raised an eyebrow again, "you don't know what she gets up to." "I looked all over." Collins emerged from the dark house, shining his flashlight in their direction. "Nothing seems to be disturbed, but of course you could tell that better than I could, ma'am. I didn't see anyone inside, though. No girl or anyone else." "Did you search the closets? That's where she hid when... Jimmy's mother closed her eyes and put a hand over her face. Collins looked to Gibson for confirmation, and then nodded and ran back into the house, disappearing up the staircase. "Ma'am?" Gibson lowered his voice. "Do you have a way to ping her phone? Find her last known location?" "I do," Jimmy said, pulling his phone from his pocket. "I had to do that when she lost her phone at the Tame Impala concert this summer. Look, it says she was last online at 1:16 a.m., right here at the house." Gibson checked his watch. 20 minutes ago. "Well, unless she drove away." "She doesn't drive," Jimmy's mother interrupted. "Well, or someone drove her away. There's about a 2-mile radius she could have got to on foot. We can set up a search." "Mom?" Everyone looked up at the porch at the sound of Magda's voice. She stood in the doorway, trembling. Her eyes were wide and her hands balled into fists. Her mother took a step toward her, and then Jimmy broke into a run, limping in pain up onto the porch. He threw his arms around his sister and held tight. The worry that he might never see her again melted away into relief. She shivered in his arms. I thought I looked." Officer Collins appeared behind her on the staircase, a look of confusion on his face. "Not hard enough." Jimmy's mother ran up onto the porch, moved Jimmy aside, and put her hands on Magda's shoulders. "Where were you? What happened?" Magda turned her puffy eyes toward Jimmy, and her lips trembled as she spoke, her voice a whisper. "I heard my name." Okay, so that was Chapter 3, 2024, The First Night. Next week is Chapter 4, and it is actually going to be a flashback to 1976, where we once again see the other main character in this book, who is Roger. And as I said, this is a time travel book, so we are going to be jumping around a little bit in the timeline. Right now we're in 2024. Next week we'll be in 1976, but we'll be all over the place between those 2 years before the end of the book. So once again, this is You Are All Charlotte. 2 weeks from now, comes out in paperback and Kindle Unlimited. And as a reminder, I also have right now a short story on Kindle Unlimited, which is called Hannah's Ring. It is a ghost story. It is available for 99 cents on Kindle, but also on Kindle Unlimited for free. So if you haven't read that, you can check that out. I also have a video on my channel where I read that entire thing, so check that out if you haven't. And I will see you next week for more of You Are All Charlotte.